What is going on, y'all? It's your boy RickyMoto. Welcome back to yet another video. Oh, can we make it? Can we make it? Can we make it? Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. I certainly am. I just got back from an 80-hour work week. Pretty freaking nuts. I've been grinding it out, hustling it out, getting my money right. I got to pay off a lot of debt, so I'm really working my ass off right now. Anyways, for this video, I'm actually shooting it for a second time because the first time I filmed it, my GoPro messed up. So hopefully this time I don't have any technical issues and the video will turn out totally fine. I appreciate all the feedback that I've been getting so far on all the videos. It's been amazing getting all the comments and the questions, sometimes even DMs. So in this video today, I'm going to be talking about the 5 things I love about the Yamaha R7. Now, I made a video talking about the things I dislike about the bike, and I got a lot of comments who either agreed or disagreed on the points, and I love that. I love the engagement. I love the sort of back and forth discussions with points that people agree on, disagree on. Okay, lady. And even the points that that people disagreed on, I even agreed with to some degree. I feel like the R7 is a very tricky bike, so a lot of the things that I like I also dislike, and the things I dislike I also like, so it can go both ways. There's no right or wrong, it's just personal preference. So anyways, jumping right into it, the first thing I love about the Yamaha R7 has to be its performance. Now, I know in the other video I talked about performance, saying it was slow and like it lacked or whatever, but at the same time, I do like the performance. It's still quick. It's not a slow bike. It's only slow when you compare it to other faster bikes, right? If you're comparing this to a Yamaha R6 or R1 or anything of that level, obviously this thing's gonna feel kind of slow. But if you just look at the R7 as its own thing, right? It's rated for roughly 75 horsepower and has a 0 to 60 advertised of 3.27 seconds. Bro, 3.27 seconds? None of these cars on the road here can even hit 4 seconds right now, and you're getting that for around 10 grand, a 3 second speed vehicle. This thing is super torquey. It's super instant. Once you pull on the throttle, it just goes. The R7 is designed after the MT-07, which is a very, very, very torquey bike, and that's what I love about it. I do a lot of city riding, sometimes highway runs. I'm not necessarily a top speed demon where I need to go at 200 miles an hour. I just love doing this, cruising around town, getting that preppiness. It was very instantaneous, and I love that. The R6 doesn't have that kind of torque. You gotta really rev that thing out if you really want to get the power out of it. But the R7, even though on paper it may lack, horsepower numbers and whatnot, the torque really makes up for it because it starts to feel like a really quick bike. And the thing about speed and the perception of speed actually mostly comes down to torque anyway. If you have a torquey car that has very little horsepower versus a car that has a lot of horsepower but no torque, that slower, lower horsepower car is gonna perceptively feel a lot faster. Because the thing is, technically, you can't feel speed. For example, if you're sitting on an airplane that's going 500 miles an hour, you don't feel like you're going 500 miles an hour. You feel like you're going 0. It's like you're standstill. What most people want out of any fast bike, fast car, is that sensation of acceleration, and most of that feeling comes from the torque. That sort of pulling feeling, and that pulling feeling of the torque is what the R7 really, really shines at. Now, the next thing about the Yamaha R7 has to be the ergonomics. So, as you guys know, this is like a super sport, and super sports are mainly known to be very aggressive in the, the seating position, the styling. The R7 doesn't really feel all that aggressive in terms of the way you sit. Now, compared to the R3, obviously, this thing is a lot more hunched over. The R3 literally felt like you're sitting on a chair. You're fully straight up, which is very comfortable. My back is definitely bent on this bike. It's not like I'm sitting straight up, but it's not so bent to the point where it's uncomfortable. My back's hurting. I know a lot of the other super sports out there, like, you're really hunched over. The R7 is very comfortable, and transitioning over from an R3, it was definitely something I noticed right away, like, oh, okay, this is a little bit more aggressive when I first sat on it, but it wasn't to the point where I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm bent. And as a beginner-ish rider, if you're a new rider, or if you're like upgrading from a smaller bike, it makes it really easy to transition over to the R7. If you want something that's sporty, but at the same time able to be chill on the road, not like going crazy, this is the best sort of you know, bike for that, with the performance along with the seating position. Now the third thing I love about the Yamaha R7 is the design. I think all Yamaha bikes just look absolutely beautiful. My first bike was a Kawasaki. I didn't really like the look of it, and even the newer Kawasaki's, yet again, it's just personal preference. I just don't like the way they look. Wonder what all that was about. The design of this bike is absolutely amazing. I love the way it looks. It's so sick looking, very aggressive, but also maintaining a very clean look. You know, I think a lot of bikes out there, they look nice and aggressive, but sometimes they have too many angles where it just looks like it's a little overkill. I think Yamaha bikes have a very clean, aggressive look. You know what I'm saying? Like the front end is a very smooth panel. It's not like has like lines everywhere and like all these different shapes. And you know, I love how Yamaha on all their bikes, at least in their R line, is very consistent in the theme. You know, like the R3, R6, R7, R1, they all have that very similar front end where it has like that little intake duct looking thing in the middle. Especially love that tail. You know, the tail on this bike is so sick. It has like a streamlined sort of widened winglet kind of design on it. And that even leads me to my next point of build quality. This R7 feels absolutely solid. Yamaha is kind of like a luxury brand, you know, and so you're gonna expect to get that kind of quality when getting a Yamaha bike. Even their lower tier, you know, R3, it felt really solid. Although like most of the bikes are, you know, covered in plastics, the plastic isn't like this thin, flimsy crap. You know, my Z125 Pro, now of course I'm comparing this to like a very low end bike, but the Z125 Pro, it just felt flimsy, you know, like the panels, I can just rip it off by hand. And you know, even on the spec sheet, like the R7, they did not cheap out on the parts. It has like upgraded and adjustable suspension with like upside down forks. It uses like a Brembo brake system, so like it's very high quality components. Now I did hear some complaints from people saying that they didn't like the brakes on the R7, that's kind of mushy or whatever, but honestly I actually like that. I feel like the R3, the brakes were a little jarring, so whenever I pulled the lever, it would always kind of be a very instantaneous bite, which could be good for beginners, I guess, if you need to stop quick. You know, the R7, because it's a little bit more plush, it allows the braking to be smoother. You know, it's not like it's gonna just yank and stop you right away. Now moving on to the fifth point I love about this bike. Now there's always a lot more stuff I can say about this bike, but I wanted to keep it at 5. The fifth thing is the slipper clutch. So the R7 has an upgraded clutch system where it kind of slips the clutch a little bit, so then when you downshift, it can kind of smooth it out. I don't want to say it's an auto rev matching system, because that's kind of like what it is, but basically, you know, when you downshift, you typically blip the throttle like this. You know, I always downshift and rev match it. It's a habit of mine, you know, when I first started learning, and that's how you should do it to keep the bike smooth and safe. But with the R7, with the slipper clutch, technically if you don't rev match and you downshift, you're not gonna really get that wheel spin out, losing control kind of feeling, because the bike will adjust to that RPM and allow that downshift to be a lot smoother. But on top of that, you know, sometimes if you do a bad downshift, which happens time to time, it'll correct it and it'll actually be very smooth. You know, especially if you're coming down from a really high speed to a slow speed and you have to downshift like multiple gears at once, which I've done, you know, on this bike, on any bike really. And there's been times where by doing that, I actually lose control of the rear wheel and it kind of squeals out a little bit. And it's scary, and you know, you can actually wreck like that. But you know, I've had a few incidents where I had a emergency brake and downshift right away on this bike, and I felt that system kicking in, and it's basically saved me. I didn't think I would like slipper clutches. You know, when I first heard of slipper clutches, I'm like, oh man, it's gonna be like automated. I don't really like the automated feeling of anything. But it works so well where it's not like you feel it kicking in like it's like an instant, like, you know, kind of like ABS. You know, when you activate ABS, you can feel it clicking in, and I don't really like that. But you know, Yamaha managed to make the slipper clutch feel very seamless to the point where it's not like a system that kicks in like there's like an on switch. It's like it just works, you know. It just feels really smooth. Every downshift, every rev match just works flawlessly. Like, look at that. I didn't even feel it. I can't, like, it's so crazy, because like usually when I downshift and rev match, I can feel the gear drop, but on this bike it felt like it didn't even shift, but it did. But yeah, guys, nice and short, simple, sweet video on the 5 things I love about the Yamaha R7. If you guys want to see the contrary video where I talk about the things I dislike or things that Yamaha could improve upon about the R7, go and check out the other video that I posted on my channel. But yeah, guys, other than that, the Yamaha R7 is absolutely an amazing bike. You know, I don't regret this purchase. I'm really happy that I got this bike and for the price that I got it for. But with that being said, y'all, thank you for watching. It's been your boy RickyMoto. If you guys want to follow me on Instagram, it's RickyMoto on Instagram. All the information will be in the description below. With that being said, it's been your boy, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.